This the man changing the diaper for the first time in his life. Probably gonna get to talking all adorable.
Hey, Bruce Leroy. When did you eat some corn, man? Ow! Ow! He peed on me!
The man had his mouth open and everything.
He peed on me! Oh, God, it's burning! Ow! Oh, I can't see! I can't see, Gladys! Oh, that's all right, Bruce Leroy. Daddy gonna get you all cleaned up. We just gonna get the poop out your hair. That's all.
All right, so this is just gonna be a little quick scene, real quick, man. He's bathing his daughter, bathing his daughter, man. He's gonna be talking to his daughter, and he's gonna say a couple of things that that resonate, that should resonate with us, and I'm gonna go ahead and go into a little bit of detail. So,
Oh, man, you got soft hair.
he said you got soft hair.
You got hair like your mama. When you get older, all the little black girls in the neighborhood gonna be, oh, Bruce Leroy, you got good hair. You got Indian in your family. And then the little Chinese girls, they're gonna be, oh, Bruce Leroy, me so horny.
I don't know if you brothers peeped, but he said, you gonna have good hair. All the black girls are gonna be like, oh, Bruce Leroy, you got Indian, you got Native in your family, and one thing that we understand that a lot of people are coming into the knowledge and knowing understanding now is that the Native Americans and the quote unquote Indians are actually so-called people of color. When we're talking about the people who are behind, who are in the quote unquote captivity, they're not talking about the the people from Africa. They're not talking about the people from Egypt. They're not talking about the Palestinians and Pakistanians. They're not talking about any of those people. They're talking about the Native Americans, the people who are held hostile in their own land to this day. And one thing about the so-called quote unquote natives, the red people, how we know that they're identifying. At least that they used to identify as so-called black people, and even to this day they still are the so-called black people. When we look at the etymology of certain words, like how Latinos call you certain things to this day, like a derogatory term that they will call you today would be a mayate. Now, when you look at the etymology of the word mayate, what are they calling you? They're calling you a Maya. Anybody who understands the Mayans, the Olmecs, the Azteca, those are the same people as the Native Americans, the Incas, and stuff in that nature. And they also understood that they're called the red people, right? The red people. When we look at a so-called quote unquote light-skinned woman, we call them a red bone. When we look at the color Indian red, it's also like brown. A brownish type color. One thing about my grandparents, my grandma in particular, her name is Sandy. And anybody from the Native Americans can range from the light skinned all the way to the dark skinned to looking like an African, because so-called blacks, Negroes have multiple different varieties. You may not even be from Africa, but you may be as dark as Africa because where you're from, or whatever the case may be. But even getting back a little bit to the Native American thing a little bit. Getting back to the Native American thing a little bit. When you understand and look at who the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Incas, the Native Americans, how they identified and how they identified themselves hundreds and thousands of years ago, they identified themselves as Negroes. And this isn't this isn't a history channel, but we do go over history so we can have a proper understanding of who we are, so we can properly identify. Right? A lot of our people still they don't know how to identify culturally, and they don't understand what that has to do, as far as where they stand and who they are as a people. And we don't because once again we're culturalists over here within our community, so we don't understand the tie and the strength that has by identifying with your culture, your actual proper culture. And the most of the people of the Americans, the so-called Negroes of the Americans, are Native Americans, and that's a fact. If we understand once again that the black man is a aboriginal to every landmass, the so-called black man is an aboriginal to every landmass, right? There were black people ruling in every landmass. From everywhere came black people. We were all everywhere, right? So why can it? Why is it wrong if we identify as Native American, right? But let's get back to the video. And I'm not sure if you guys are able to see, but I went back a little bit. Even when he makes the reference to the to the Indian or whatever, when you look in the background, like I said, the Native Americans or the so-called black man is the aboriginal to every landmass. And when you look, is the colors right here, the red and green, and that could be a representation of Mexico. And that looks right there like a so-called black man, a man of color who is a little bit darker, if not his skin tone, his shade. Look. So once again, when you look at how the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Incas, the Native Americans, how they identified hundreds and if not thousands of years ago, how they identified themselves. Even when you look up the people who were capturing, who you look up the people who were invaders of the land, they identified those people as the quote unquote Asians and the Mongolians that we see today. So when we look at the quote unquote modern Mexicans that we see today, those Mexican technically isn't even a race, right? So when we understand, exactly the people who are in charge over there in modern day Mexico, right? Those aren't people of color. Those are not people of color over there, but the people, most of the people who inhabit that land, the aboriginals of that land, are people of color, and they don't show us that. And that happens because Mexico was conquered. Mexico and also this side, North America, was also conquered as well. America, Mexico, this entire side of the continent was captured by the Mongolians, the Europeans, the Spaniards, and the Africans. Little known, little do we know. And you can disagree, but until you do your own research, then you'll be able to come to these conclusions just like I have myself. And the Most High also says that we'll be held captive in our own land. Is this not what's going on today? a lot of our brothers, once again, we got to learn to identify properly when it comes to our culture and our ethics, right, and morally as well. But when we look at the people who have conquered this land, that's why the quote unquote Mexicans that we see today, the language that they speak is Spanish. When we look at the colonization and the invasion of Mexico, the 1495? The Spanish Inquisition of 1495. That was carried out by Spaniards and Europeans. When you look at Christopher Colon, or aka Christopher Columbus, he was a European Spaniard as well. He was an Italian explorer. Right? So when we look at the language that they speak over there, it's because that's from where they were conquered. And when you hear quote unquote Mexicans also saying, with the whole nigga thing, when you hear them, when you call them out on that, and they were like, oh, I can say nigga, or I can do what wooty wooty, or my grandma's black, or I have African blood. They're not lying. They're not lying when they say they have African blood, because Africans, Asians, Spaniards, the Mongols and Europeans all came over on this side and helped conquer this side of the continent. One thing that we got to understand, if Africa is the place where all the diamonds are and all the gold is and where all the true people are, if you've ever looked at a map, you would understand that one question that you would ask yourself is, why would they take Africans who are actually attached to that landmass? Africa is attached to Europe, Spain, Russia, China. It's actually, they're all connected. Where we are right now is the other side of the continent. The other side of the continent is all of those people, right? So why would they take a people from their land, from their side of the country, right, from their side of the planet actually, and take them all the way over here and restart? Why wouldn't they just capture the quote unquote Africans and hold them captive over there? It doesn't make sense. And when you look at Abe Lincoln, when he identified America as the land of flowing milk and honey, what do you think he was talking about? If Africa is the richest places, why didn't they just settle up in Africa? These are valid questions, but a lot of you esoteric brothers and Hamite brothers won't answer that question and really don't study enough anyway.
Oh, Bruce Leroy, you got good hair. You got Indian in your family, and then the little Chinese girl.
And that's why you see the quote unquote not to keep digressing, man, but when you see the quote unquote Native Americans that you identify today, right? They look like like Chinese people, and even a lot of the Mexicans, the so-called quote unquote Mexicans that we see today, look Chinese as well. Because once again, you even see Mexicans who look white. Pau Gasol and Marc Gasol are both white boys from Spain. They're both Spaniards, which means that they're white people, so-called quote unquote white people, European, right? They're white. This is why you see Mexicans with freckles, blue eyes, and blonde hair. Quote unquote Mexicans, right? Because they are the direct descendants of the people who have held us in captivity. And the people who are raped and fucked up our ancestors. But a lot of you brothers aren't ready for that conversation.
They're gonna be, oh, Bruce Leroy, me so horny, me love you long time.
All right, so this is going to be pretty much the closing right here. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit context to everything that I've been saying at the end, pretty much based off the the Native American and the American thing. So when we look up the definition of an American at the Webster's Dictionary of 1828, as you guys can see at the top, the definition of American is an adjective pertaining to America, of course, and the noun, a native of America, an aboriginal, right? Originally applied to the aboriginals, meaning what? People who originally came from that land, the actual inhabitants of that land, right? So originally applied to the aboriginals are copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Who does that sound similar to? Oh boy, if it wasn't for the internet, man, a lot of us people would still be asleep. The Most High, and a lot of the times older people tell us, you can't believe everything you see on the internet. Y'all be on the internet too much, but you would have to be on the internet all day pretty much to be able to get access to most of the information. So yeah, we can see right here exactly who the Americans or the Native Americans are actually is actually applied to the actual American. So let's go. All right, so here we are with the Aboriginal Mexicans, meaning the inhabitants of that land. And when you go to the Google images, right, look at what it pulls up. And exactly like I was telling people last time, the people who were held captive are the Negroes, and the people who came over here and invaded were the Africans, the Mongolians, and Europeans. So which is why when you see people like this, quote unquote Mexicans, right, indigenous Mexican actress, she doesn't even look Mexican, she looks Asian. Ah, man, even this lady right here, right? Look at her. Look at in the background too. These people are not Negro. Even the Native Americans today, the quote unquote Native Americans who we call today, look like these. Why is that these people? Why is it that these quote unquote Mexicans look Asian? And we're supposed to be in Mexico. You understand me?
What I'm sure is that that's George's voice.
These Latins don't fuck with your black.
Do you know whose voice that was?
A scream that it came immediately. Not only I just heard the scream, I felt the scream, like my nephew screaming for his life.
You hear the bullshit. You hear how these Spanish niggas stick together, right? They killed a black boy, young black boy, minding his business, Trayvon. And you see this, let me run it back, because this shit make me sick to my stomach.
Scream. I felt the scream.
He felt the scream. There goes them Telemundo acting classes.
I felt the scream, like my nephew screaming for his life.
Shit.
It was a moment that I actually lived with me every moment that I heard the portion of that, because it was the feeling of saying, oh, I heard Georgie. It was George screaming for his life.
You still want to trust these cocksuckers. You go right on ahead.